PC versus console, an age-old debate that probably won't ever end, but as the holidays roll around, I always hear one or two of my friends ask, should I buy a PC? Now, as someone who has experience in both worlds of gaming, I can clearly see that they each have pros and cons of their own. A lot of people will just say PC is entirely better than console, but never explain beyond the fact that you can run games faster. So in today's video, I'm going to be comparing both PC and console's unique benefits and detriments, while also explaining what they mean to a normal person. First, let's talk about what everyone thinks of when they compare these two mediums: graphics. I'm sure you've seen these side-by-side comparison videos of the PS5, Xbox, Switch, and PC, but let's actually look into what these mean. The biggest thing I want to note is that the PC itself does not have a set level of specifications. What I mean by this is every PC is different based on the parts inside of it. Actually, consoles are made of the same components as a PC. You'll have a motherboard, a graphics card, CPU, RAM, storage, and a power supply. For graphics specifically, we typically want to look at the graphics card and the CPU to an extent. These two parts actually process the gameplay and allow the computer or console to function. Here's the thing with these parts: while PCs are usually very marketable, big graphics cards with nice names like the 4070 Super, consoles opt for a more compact, custom-made GPU that you can't find on the market. For example, the Nintendo Switch's processor is an NVIDIA Tegra X1, which is something you'll never see unless you open up the console. Comparing that with my own computer, well, this massive part here is my graphics card. Naturally, you would assume that this difference in size means difference in capability, and while that is mostly true, it's probably not for the reason you think. The size of the graphics cards in PC comes from these heat sinks and fans, which make sure your computer doesn't explode from how much heat they generate. If you've ever owned a PS4, you probably remember the classic jet engine noise that it would produce after a few years. Well, that's the fans trying to dispel the heat that the processors generate. So yeah, if you were wondering why consoles always have these unsightly holes towards the top of them, this is why. But specifications aside, I know a big concern for people when it comes to this debate is the price. Remember, price isn't just about the console, but the games and subscriptions you'll have to buy alongside it. During the making of this video, the PS5 is just around $400, the Xbox Series X is a bit higher, and the Switch is like $300. Obviously, there are models of each console which make it cheaper or more expensive in exchange for more or less benefits, but for the sake of keeping track, I'll just talk about their base models. This already is expensive for some people, but when we bring PCs into the equation, it can seem even more pricey. Modern GPUs alone in the NVIDIA 40 series can start at $300 and can get as high as $2,000. Fortunately for us, a lot of these more expensive computer parts aren't necessary if you just want to play games at an equal level to consoles. There are dozens of different graphics cards out there, but you really only need about $300 to run games at a slightly superior or equal graphical quality with 120 frames per second, which is what some consoles like the PS5 will run at. Things like a CPU are also important for gaming sometimes, but these are typically a lot less expensive, especially if you can find bundles for them with motherboards or RAM sticks at places like Micro Center. Despite this, you'll probably end up spending more on a computer up front versus if you just bought something like a PS5. I know this sounds bad, but let me explain how the costs will add up. There are a bunch of different micro benefits to having a PC. First of all, everything is just faster. Assuming you chose your parts correctly or just got a good pre-built computer, the experience with things like load times is significantly better than consoles. I remember when I was a console gamer that I was able to watch full-length YouTube videos while my GTA 5 loaded. Another interesting benefit is that you can customize your game's graphical settings to optimize for looks or performance. So basically, let's say you wanted to run a game that's a little less frame rate important, like Red Dead Redemption 2, and you wanted to run it at higher graphical settings. You can make the game look beautiful, but the trade-off is that you would run the game slower or at a lower frame rate. On the alternative, you can reduce the settings all the way down graphically, but then you can see the gameplay so much faster, assuming your monitor supports it. Consoles basically never allow you to control the graphics in this way, and you're typically capped at 60 frames per second with a few exceptions. Not to mention, 120 frame TVs aren't most common in households, honestly, unless you're kinda well off, and they can run you a lot of money depending on the model. 144Hz monitors are cheaper than ever though, and much more practically sized than a TV, although you can definitely run a PS5 or Xbox Series X on a monitor. That's not like an exclusive thing for computers. And the same thing goes for if you want to run a PC on a TV, although that one is a little more strange. It's not that modern consoles look bad or anything, but the fact that you can control your experience is what I like about PCs so much more in this category. Next, let's talk about subscriptions. Anyone who's played online console gaming knows the pain of booting a game up and seeing that your online subscription has run out for the year. Back in my day, these used to cost about $60 a year and were not really that confusing. You just kinda bought them and then you could play online. These days though, there are multiple levels of subscription that incentivize themselves by giving you access to certain games. This topic could be a video in and of itself, but ultimately PS5's online access will cost you $80 a year, Xbox is about $60, Switch is $20, and PC is, well, free as long as you pay your internet bill. So if we extend the timeline of owning a console out about 5 years, owning a PS5 will cost you an extra $400. Doesn't sound so affordable now, does it? Xbox, I'll give a little more credit though, because their Xbox Game Pass is one of the best subscription platforms out there in my opinion. Their selection of games is top tier and even can be used on PC if you have the Ultimate version. PS Plus is just sad, though, honestly. Another secret benefit of owning a PC is how many deals you get on games. Steam, the central hub for gaming on PC, has frequent seasonal sales, sometimes allowing you to get major $70 games for dirt cheap. There's also a lot of independent games on computers that you just won't find on console, if you're into that sort of thing, of course. At the same time, there are some games on console that can be exclusives, at least for a while. I just played through Final Fantasy VII Remake on PC, which by the way, phenomenal game, and unfortunately I have to wait a while until Rebirth is ported to Steam. I mean, it's already out on PS5, but I really don't want to buy it for PS5 if I played the previous game on computer. And of course, Nintendo Switch games don't come to PC ever, so that's a really important thing to mention. If you want to play Nintendo Switch games, you might as well just get a Nintendo Switch. Emulating them is certainly possible, but it's not something that I can recommend unless you're really wanting to do that. Speaking of which though, one niche area that I like about computers is the ease of emulation, especially since I cover a lot of older games from the 2010s and 2000s on my channel. You can definitely mod your consoles to do this as well, but it's a lot scarier because some consoles can get bricked if you do it wrong. I guess PCs can also be problematic in this area, with one of the major cons being that you can get viruses on computers. This definitely isn't something you should brush off, and I think everyone thinks they're safe until they download something that looks normal, which eventually starts opening up a million tabs and crashing your computer. I would say if you do get a PC, make it a priority to always check the credibility of the places where you download things from, and do your research on some good antivirus softwares out there just in case. Anyway, one of the hidden benefits of PC gaming over console is the sheer fact that you are using a computer. What I mean by this is, if you want to watch a YouTube video or listen to music while you're playing a game, you can open up a Google Chrome tab and do that. I remember when I was playing Elden Ring on my PS5 a few years ago, I wanted to watch YouTube, so I had to prop up my phone on my TV to multitask that way. Now, I'll just throw a video on my second monitor. If you want to pursue content creation like myself, having a solid PC is almost an essential, since you have to capture gameplay, record, and edit using softwares that simply don't run effectively on something like a laptop. But ultimately, the greatest benefit in my opinion is the fact that whenever you run into a problem with a computer, you can almost always solve it. With a console, you're stuck with whatever settings, hardware, or bugs that the developers decided to have in it. The benefits of a PC can be as small as optimizing your controls to be the most comfortable for you, or as big as literally modding games in order to make them play better or add cool stuff. So to wrap this video up, I decided to make a little price estimate to see how much you would have to pay to own a console versus a PC over the course of 5 years. For the sake of this test, I'll use the PS5 and a similarly spec'd PC to compare. If you want a Switch, Xbox, or a better PC, well, you can just adjust for that pricing. Initially, buying a PS5 will run you about $400 to $500, and if you need some extra stuff like another controller or headset, the setup will be around $600. Assuming you don't have a TV already, you can probably get yourself a decent monitor to play PS5 for about $150 too. As for buying a PC, all of the parts will likely add up to about $1,400, although this could be more or less depending on many factors including accessories. Safe to say though, it's a lot more expensive than the PS5 initially. To keep these numbers easy, let's change the initial cost of the PS5 to $700 so we can say the PC is around double the price and make the numbers easy. But let's look at actually getting the games now. Assuming you buy 10 new games per year and they cost $70, you'll spend $3,500 over the course of 5 years. Wow. Realistically though, you'll probably be able to get some smaller deals, so let's drop the average cost per game to $50, making the 5-year total $2,500 instead. On PC, you'll get a lot more deals on average, factoring in major events like the Steam summer and winter sales. There's not really a clear way of factoring in averages for these things, especially because everyone's gaming preference is different. Some of you might not even play games that cost money and just want to play Valorant or League of Legends. But for the sake of pricing, I'll say the average cost per game will be about $40, making the 5-year cost $2,000. Of course though, you'll need to buy subscriptions for online services for the PS5, so over 5 years that's another $400. Ouch. And PC, well, you'll never have to buy any of that online access stuff. Here I could account for potential upgrades, but since that's literally so preference based, I don't know if it's fair to add. Speaking from experience though, you'll probably want to get an external storage for your PS5 after a while, which will run you about $100, but that might even be the case for your PCs too, so I'll just add $100 to both totals. And if we total everything up, the cost of owning a PS5 over 5 years will be $3,700 on average, and the cost of owning a PC over 5 years will be about $3,500. So yeah, owning a PS5 might actually be more expensive than owning a PC, but realistically, I'd consider them to be very equal in pricing once you account for accessories and other factors. I'd also like to add that during the holidays, PC parts can get quite affordable, so I'm sorry for this anticlimactic result, but it really is up to you. I'll give my personal opinion though. You can do so much more with a PC that if the prices are going to be comparable anyway, I figure why not just take the plunge. I definitely agree that the initial money dump is scary, but it is a price I would pay 1,000,000 times over because of how much PCs have brought to my life. Owning a computer allows me to do my homework, watch videos, work, and play games all within the same space. Not to mention how much satisfaction I get from actually building the computer and using it every single day. So if you ask me if PC gaming is really that good, I'd say absolutely, and you should go get one right now. But if you just want to get a console, you can do that too. It's fine.